Hi there. Welcome to the Lifestyle Herbalist Podcast, where we hope to bring you a healthy dose of happiness. I'm your host, Dabney Vaccaro, clinical herbalist, health coach, lover of plants.
And I'm Sabrina Cooper, registered culinary holistic nutritionist and herbalist. Join us as we dive into the art of herbalism, mindfulness, and healthy lifestyle practices to help you achieve a happier and healthier life. Whether you're a seasoned herbalist or just starting your wellness journey, we're here to provide you with the insights, tips, and inspiration for a more balanced and joyful existence. So grab your favorite herbal tea, sit back, and let's get a healthy dose of happiness together.
Hi, welcome back to the Lifestyle Herbalist Podcast, where we hope to bring you a healthy dose of happiness. Sabrina and I are here today to talk about the inflammation equation, foods that fuel and fight. So this is a podcast where we dive deep into the world of nutrition and how it affects our body's inflammation and the processes that our body goes through. Sabrina and I hope to explore some foods that can either fuel inflammation or fight it. And we think it's important to understand the balance, as it's crucial for maintaining optimal health, well-being, and also your oral health. As Sabrina and I are both registered hygienists and have seen this case in point with our patients throughout the years. So welcome. Hey, Sabrina.
Hey, Dabney. It's so great to see you again. I know we've been busy in our everyday lives and kind of took a step back from our podcast. So we're hoping to get back into it on a more regular schedule and connect again with everybody. So before we dive into these specific foods and what causes inflammation and what's good, what's bad, I don't really like the words good and bad, but what can serve you better and what doesn't serve you as well. Let's understand what inflammation is. And we'll talk a little bit about it between the two of us. Because it's something that we've both firsthand experienced in our own lives, and we wanted to share our own experiences and how we manage it as well in different situations. So inflammation is just the natural process that our body uses to protect itself from harm. So it's basically fighting, it's basically helping, and it's like it will when you get injured, it sends out a response of inflammatory cells to the affected area. So think of a cut. When you cut yourself and it needs to heal, your body is fighting. It's trying to heal itself. And so it's a good thing in the short term as it helps us heal. But then when inflammation becomes chronic and you keep on giving yourself things that you shouldn't be giving, it can lead to so many issues and problems health-wise, including arthritis, heart disease, even cancers can be caused by it. And we get a lot of the autoimmune diseases and disorders. So, Dabney, do you want to share a little bit about your experiences before we get into foods that can fuel the inflammation?
Sure, Sabrina.
What I said?
Yeah. So it's a good thing we have an inflammatory process because, like Sabrina said, that is important. Like, we need to have that immune response when we do have a cut or an injury of some sort, because it's our body's way of healing itself. Otherwise, we would be infected all the time because we'd have these open wounds, and we would just die early because of infections. But our body comes to the rescue when we have an injury, and that is called acute response. But for whatever reason, I'm not sure that we fully understand why sometimes that inflammation response does not turn off. Like, once the injury is healed, then it should turn itself off, and then it goes back to its normal day-to-day activities. But in some instances, there's something called chronic inflammation, where the inflammatory process does not turn off. And so it's just constantly fighting things. So then sometimes it turns to like foods or things that we eat then causes an inflammatory response, because our body sees that particle of food or something that's in our body, and it sees it as a toxin and tries to fight it off. So that's primarily what we're going to talk about today, is that chronic inflammatory response. I know for me, I have inflammation in my body when I do consume certain types of foods. And I have one of my knuckles on my left hand lets me know when I have an inflammatory response. And so when I've consumed something that my body doesn't like, my knuckle swells just a bit, but it lets me know, like, okay, girl, you need to rein it back. Like you're doing something wrong. But it's because I've been able to understand my body. And many times we don't spend time listening to our body. And we just take some type of ibuprofen or a pain reliever because we have a pain. And then we just move on with our life. And so we treat our bodies a lot like a machine that we just try and throw up, a little bit of oil or gas in and keep going, rather than looking at our body as a garden that we just tend to each day and really pay attention to try and figure out, okay, I got a weed growing over there. I need to get that weed out. And it seems like it's a stubborn one. So I'm going to have to spend some time on it. And that is just the real fact, is that we just have to spend time sitting with ourselves, understanding our body, and listening to what our body is telling us, and just paying attention to pain is a response that something isn't right. So why would you take pain reliever if your back hurts and then go over and just pick up the jackhammer and just keep jackhammering away? Like your body is saying, stop jackhammering. But we don't.
Exactly.
We just keep going.
That's
And then we
right.
wonder why we need, L fusions and C fusions, later in life because we didn't take care of our back.
Exactly. Exactly. Because it all stems back. I think we did a podcast on mindful eating, if I'm not wrong, or
We
we did
did.
did a
We
talk
did.
about it. And it's
Mhm.
sort of the same thing where you become aware of what like again serves you, what doesn't serve you, right? And you shouldn't have pain. You shouldn't have discomfort after eating. You shouldn't have things flare up after eating. These are allergic, almost like think of an alert allergy. If you had an
Yeah,
allergy, you wouldn't want to eat a food
exactly.
that causes an allergy. It's almost like these foods are causing an allergy to your body. Let's call it that to make it
Right.
simpler for people to understand. And so if you were breaking it, if you could see on the inside that your body was breaking out in hives, you wouldn't keep taking that food in. You'd be like, oh, that food is not good for me. I should probably, or that whatever I'm doing is not right for me. I need to like step away from that. And I think a lot of us, what we face is that we know what we're supposed to do. It's sometimes we just don't want to give up the things that we enjoy because that's the hardest part, And if we start to really listen then and understand that this isn't serving us well and we could have a longer, healthier life, we might actually stop doing the things that are not serving it. Fine. Once in a while, you might not get that blow up, that chronic pain or that pain all of a sudden. But if you're overdoing it consistently, it will just keep flaring up.
Right. And I think to your point, what you said, it's hard to give that up because we as a society, we center our social gatherings typically around food.
Mhm.
And so when we don't have control of that food, it becomes even more challenging. For instance, I was in Denver this past week for my dental hygiene conference, which was phenomenal. But the food choices weren't always as ideal. I don't know what oils they're making their foods in. I don't know what the ingredients are in the foods that were available to me. I was staying at a place that, I was kind of privy to, I didn't cook my own food. I had to rely on the conference providing food or restaurants providing food for me, and it wasn't always great choices to choose from. And so I had to pick and choose about what I was willing to do and not willing to do. And as a result, I came back thinking, oh, I just really need to really hone it in this week because I can tell my little knuckles talking to me. So this week I've been working steadfastly on really eating whole foods, eating clean so that I can get my body to calm down after an inflammatory response that I had this past week. So
Yeah. And like you said, your body knows, and you probably feel a little more sluggish. You might feel a little more puffy or swollen. Maybe we weren't taking, like, not you specifically, but us
great,
in general might not be taking in enough water and hydration. That also plays a big factor because we want to flush out the toxins. So if you're not
absolutely.
getting hydration, good hydration, I'm not talking
Mhm.
about alcohol, good hydration, you really won't be able to flush out what's going on in your body either. And so what Dabney's doing is a reset. So yeah, you might fall off or you might do the 80-20 rule where you're clean like for 80% of the time and 20% you might not, or 10%, 90-10, however you want.
Mhm.
Because life is life. And that's why I say be mindful, because we have to enjoy life at the end of the day, right? But make
Yeah.
sure you're not taking in the foods that are really triggering for your body. And I also found it hard listening to others people's voices in like at me when I was, taking care of my health because they'd be like, you're too picky, you're too, strict with your diet or your eating habits. And I'd be like, yeah, but if I fall off, then it affects me in a negative way. And I don't want to do that to myself, you know? And sometimes I felt that they were speaking from a place because maybe they were also wishing that they could eat cleaner and
Right.
just were not wanting to, or they just didn't know how, or they don't want to give up their things, and so they were putting it on me. And I'm like, well, that's your thing. I'm doing me, you
Mhm.
do you, kind of, you know what I mean? I hate
Right.
that saying, but it's kind of like if we all have choices,
Right.
and what is your choice going to be,
Yeah, and when you're trying to make those changes, it's really important to find your tribe, even if
Mhm.
it's just an online support group, because there
Yeah,
are those in the family or friends that will kind of unintentionally, I think, kind of guilt you into thinking or that you need to try, well, just one bite. It's just one bite. It's just a little piece. They just minimize it. But one bite of anything that's considered an allergy, as you said, or a toxin to your body, there's a response. And even if it's just a bite, your body is going to respond negatively, even to that one bite. So it does have an effect on the body. And, when I was in health coaching classes and that sort of thing, they talked about, food as being one man's food is another man's poison. And that's true. We're not all built the same. We have different blood types. We have different genetic predispositions. We have different constitutions. And so foods that are helpful and nourishing and supportive to me may not be nourishing and supportive and overall great for someone else. So
right.
it's important to understand, and we're talking about mindful eating and listening, is find out what does give your body energy, what does give your body satiety, what gives you restful sleep. Because if food is supposed to uplift us and nourish us and keep us healthy, and if you're consuming things that don't check off those boxes, then perhaps you're eating something that is more of a toxin for you. And I have to say, in the dental chair, when I'm talking to my patients who have chronic gingivitis, and I'll set them up, and it's like, you know what? I can tell that you're doing a great job on your home care. Like, there's hardly any plaque. I can tell that you're cleaning your teeth well, but your gums are irritated and you have some chronic gingivitis and this has been going on. Like there's more to this puzzle. And so as I'm talking to them about the inflammatory process in foods, they'll say, "Oh yeah, I think I do have a dairy sensitivity, but I really like pizza." And I was like, "Well, that's a choice, but here's the problems when you choose to have the pizza with the dairy on it. This is what it's doing to your gums. And because you can't see what it's doing to your liver, your heart, your kidneys, it shows up in your gums. And so when your gums are irritated like that and bleeding, like that's not normal. That's your body telling you, like, hey, wake up. There's something here that's not well."
Exactly. And it's going to be an interesting thing to talk about, but my dog has a lot of allergies.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same thing. Like you can't see on the inside out, but I can tell he licks his paw, his
Mm-hmm.
ears are inflamed, around the butthole, like, there's stuff going on. He sleeps lethargic. But if he's consumed things that he shouldn't have consumed, and it's not usually me, it's other people being like, "Oh, he's so cute. Here, I'll give you a little piece of this, or I'll give you a little piece of that." And I'm like, "No, you have to stick to the plan, because then he gets sick." So now I've given him probiotics, which is really helping, which we'll get to
Yes.
later. And I've given him a specific diet, and he's so much better. And unfortunately, like, I have to give him some, herbal things and a little like medication, which I don't love doing, but I had to because it got so severe from people just, I'll say my parents because they're like the grandparents, they don't listen. They always want to give the dog, grandparents always give kids sugar and send them home to their parents. Well, that's
Yeah.
like parents, but I only have a dog. And so, like, these are the things, but I can notice, right? And so it's the same thing. And so I feel like why would I do, I'm taking care of him, so I should take care of myself as well, right? Like what I'm doing for my
Absolutely.
pets and my family, I need to do for myself. So,
Absolutely.
I think, for people to understand, maybe we should talk about some of the foods and some of the hidden ingredients that we find in foods that people maybe aren't aware of that are fueling inflammation.
Well, I totally agree.
Because there are a lot. Like we don't think about it. Like some people think, oh, it's like reading the labels is really important, and there's all these crazy words on the ingredients. I used to know, like they used to tell us to like eat foods with only 5 ingredients on them, and if you can't read them, don't eat them. But because it should be just whole foods mostly that we eat, not a lot of this processed and foods and things like that. So one
Yeah,
of the big ones that Dabney knows so much about because she did a lot of work on this is sugar and high fructose corn syrup. So, Dabney, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
yeah. Well, and I do love that, at least in America, they now have on their nutrition labels added sugar. So it's
Mm,
not just the natural
right.
sugars that's found, but they now have to, the manufacturers have to disclose their added sugar. So this is food, this is sugar that's added actually into something else. So sometimes
Amazing.
sugars will show up because it's just naturally found in the food. But you're right, Sabrina, having all those ingredients in there, it's just, we're so overly processed that we don't even recognize the food. I don't even know what to call it food. The products that we're eating, they're not really
You
food.
even
It's more
call
like
it food?
products.
Hey, I just wanted to say thanks for listening in. We have more to come, but just wanted to pause for a moment just to say thank you. We're glad that you're here, and we hope that you're learning something valuable that you can take to employ in your life to make you a happier you. If you wouldn't mind, head on over to the platform in which you're listening to and just leave a comment and give us a review. Let us know how we're doing. That being said, let's get back to the show.
We have all these artificial made ingredients that we're consuming, and who knows what that's doing to our bodies, right? And if you look at the longevity of people, I still see people that are living into their 90s, and when they were growing up, they didn't have what we had, you know?
Oh,
And then the longevity of our like generation seems to be like riddled with cancers and diseases and autoimmune and all these things. And one of the biggest culprits, which we know, is the sugar and the high fructose corn syrup, because everything now that's the cheaper way to do it. It's like the beverages that's leading to it's a sweetener made from cornstarch. So the conventional like corn syrup is just broken down and then it's just like turned into this some of the glucose is turned into fructose and we get this sweetener that's added in that has simulates granulated sugar. Plus they add sugar, plus they add everything else into it. So we're not only getting corn syrup, we're also getting all these artificial things in our foods, which fuel inflammation.
great. Well, and the thing to note about high fructose corn syrup, although a lot of companies are now taking it out because the consumers are outraged. It's primarily found in condiments. They're still using them in condiments and some
Yeah.
sweetened beverages, but it is so highly refined that it
Mhm.
completely goes right through the digestive system and gets stored into the liver. So we've heard a lot more about fatty liver disease, and
Yep.
even in children who are having fatty liver disease, and it's from the high fructose corn syrup. We didn't have fatty liver disease 25, 30 years
No,
ago.
of
We
course
didn't
not.
have high fructose corn syrup. At least it wasn't as readily available, or the manufacturers weren't putting them in foods quite as much. But people think because they did really bad last week with their eating that's why they're sick this week. But that's not the
Cumulative.
case. It's cumulative. So it's what you did 10 or 20 years ago that now shows up as disease because our bodies are so great at repairing and restoring and trying to hold ourselves, and be healthy. But after a while, like it just starts to break down. It's like it can't hold the pieces together anymore, and then disease and inflammation, it all starts to show up as a chronic problem. But yeah, for sure, sugar is the number one cause for inflammation. It's an inflammatory factor for everyone, so it's not like you can be like immune from the sugar inflammation process. That's
Yeah,
not a thing.
prodigy, if you are, that would be
Yeah,
amazing.
everyone has an inflammatory response when consuming sugar. Sugar tastes good to our tongue. It lights up our dopamine response in our brain. We love it. When they look at rats who look at cocaine versus sugar, they run to the sugar, not the cocaine.
Addictive.
And it is an addictive process. How do we know it's addictive? Any substance that triggers a withdrawal effect is considered an addictive substance, and sugar certainly has withdrawal effects. So about 4 to 5 days, if you were to completely cut out sugar, for about 4 to 5 days, you're going to be grumpy. You're not going to sleep well. You're going to feel like you have a hangover, headaches, like you're just going to feel like you're off. But if you can get through day 5, you're going to start to feel so much better. Like the cloudiness is going to go away. You'll start sleeping better. You'll have more energy because you're not going to be on that roller coaster ride of sugars ups and sugars down and sugars ups and sugars down. So it really is worth it to try and get off sugar. Just set the parameters to know that you're probably going to be not yourself because you are coming down because of withdrawal effects. But removing sugar is certainly one way or the best way to try and get that inflammation out of your body. And to tell you, like cancer loves sugar. When they do PET scans, it's actually a sugar glucose kind of serum that's put into the body. Then they run this scan on you to see where cancer is living in your body. And it shows up because the cancer fuel is fueled by sugar. So for me, I have lots of cancer, genetically in my family. And so for me, avoiding sugar as much as possible is really important for me because I know I'm going to die, but I'm going to die of other causes, not that one.
Take control, right?
Right.
And yeah, so, we could go on and on. And I think, we could go on and on about sugar and that I think we did we do a podcast? I can't remember. We did so many that I think we did touch a lot of, but we always touch upon sugar because sugar is like nemesis
Everywhere.
for us, right?
Mhm.
Dentally, body, everything. It's not great. So bottom line, watch the sugar intake, read your labels, and really start to cut back on that. And because you find it in everything, all the processed, try to eat more better, try to eat more better, try to eat better.
Mhm.
And right now, I mean, I'm in Ontario. I mean, we're on the same sort of side of the world, and fruits are in season, so you get your natural sugars from there. Because we're not saying cut out fruit, because fruit has some natural sugars. Yes, it does spike, but you still get a lot of nutrients. It's a nutrient dense type of sugar, right? Like a nutrient dense type of food. So you're going to get nutrients from the food. I mean, you're going to limit maybe if you have diabetes, things like that, just watch which fruits you eat.
And pairing
So
it with a good fat.
exactly. And pairing it
Yeah.
with good fats and keeping it balanced.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of what we can say for sugar.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Fats is a big one too. Like
Sorry?
fat, like there's a lot of trans fats
Mm-hmm.
that are really wreaking havoc on our bodies as well. And that's what I was talking about when I was at my conference. Cheap fat is easy to use in restaurants because it's cheap. So canola oil, vegetable oil, corn oil, all of those, peanut oil, even all those things are omega-6s. And although it's okay to have some omega-6s, when we have too many, which is in the standard American diet, then it's just an inflammatory issue. So
Mm-hmm.
what do you know about that, Miss Sabrina?
Yeah, no, I mean, trans fats, for most people, it's just formed through it's a process where hydrogen's added to the vegetable oil and it causes it to become solid at room temperature. So it's inexpensive, and that's why a lot of companies like to use it, and it's less likely to spoil, so it has a longer shelf life. And that's why all these trans fats are usually added to products. I mean, we've done in the last few years, I know we've kind of gotten away from the trans fat, but it's considered the worst type of fat because it raises the bad cholesterol and it lowers the good cholesterol. So by eating too much of the processed, the baked goods, the margarines, the fried foods, things like that, you're going to cause an increase of bad cholesterol, which in inflammation, and we don't want that. And that's one of the main, I think, one of the biggest health concerns that I always used to see in dental office was high blood pressure, high cholesterol. Those two always went hand in hand. And if I looked at it, I would say it was probably diet. I mean, it was most likely diet because salts and sugars and processed foods and trans fats, that all
and
Part and
sedentary
parcel, right?
lifestyle.
Sedentary. People will say, "Oh, I'm active, I walk," but you gotta raise that blood pressure. You can't. I mean, I know it's good to walk. I'm not saying it's bad to walk, but you need to get that heart pumping in order to move the everything and get going, right? So
Yeah.
trans fat's the second one on our list, which leads to the carbohydrates, which is always usually in the baked goods and the
So if we
pasta.
can just pause for just a
Oh
second,
yeah, go ahead.
I don't, instead of just telling you what not to have, I want to tell you what you can have. Because, sometimes for me, like, okay, well, if I can't do that, what can I have? So
That's what I was gonna get.
some good
Yep.
fats to have is coconut oil,
Yep.
um, and have your animal fat.
Olive
We
oil.
were, for 3 decades, we were like no fat, no fat, no fat. It was killing us. So we had the no fat revolution, and we found that that was just totally missed the mark. And so have those animal fats, have lard, ghee, avocado oil, butter, tallow, olive oil, avocado oil. Maybe I mentioned those, but all of
Yep.
those types of oils are really great. And you can use them, except for olive oil. You can use all of the other ones for cooking. Olive oil is you want to use that one on like um, on your salads and things, because it does turn into a carcinogen if at high temperature. So that one you want to be careful with. But by all means, use olive oil. It's great for salad dressings. Okay.
And fatty, no, sorry, that's good to say. I was going to do that, but fatty fish as well, like things
Oh
like that,
yeah.
So we really want all that salmon, mackerel, your omega-3s. You want to boost
Mhm.
that as well. So good that we've talked about that in case we run out of time. I don't want to keep you all too long on this podcast because there's a lot to get through. And then we talked about the processed meats. There's a lot of salt, cured, fermented, smoked, which causes the carcinogens again. They're high in saturated fat, which also causes inflammation. So just, try to avoid as much as possible. That includes your deli meats, your bacon, your sausages. You could always go to more of a like, maybe healthier tofu or something like that, but you try not to eat that smoked processed meat. I don't know
Great.
if there's an
But just
alternative.
having
I don't really eat that. I don't, I'm not big on sandwiches and things, so I don't know what I just usually just have like veggies, or I'll put like, something high in protein, some quinoa, or, you know, nuts or seeds, or I don't know. What would you suggest instead of the processed meats?
Yeah, well, I
I don't
mean,
even like the artificial, because sometimes the artificial I feel is artificial. It's
yeah, it
processed.
is. Right,
So
right. Me too. I mean, yeah. So just to have the fake, I call it fake bacon and fake
yeah,
sausage,
it's like,
fake burgers, like no. So processed meats, I think it's more like the deli meats because they're just
yeah,
really
like,
processed. But if you're a meat eater, go and just pick out a really good steak.
yeah, cut it
Something
up.
that's been
Right. Chicken. Put
yeah,
chicken.
that's grass fed, and
Exactly.
chicken that's organic.
Beans,
Some
chickpeas.
fish that's been, wild caught. Just
Right.
source your foods so that it looks like food. When you're at the deli, like you see that big round thing, it's like, well, that doesn't even look like a turkey. Like, how did they get that to look like that? And there's a method to their madness. And I was told by a friend of mine who used to work at Arby's long, long time ago. She says it's basically a liquid that they pour into a form, and then they form it, and then they slice it, and then they give it to people. Like it's not even, like I said, sometimes we call it
Slimy
food. It's
after a
more
while.
like, yeah. Well, and I don't know if you know about this one lady who had a McDonald's hamburger. She just left it on the windowsill, and a year later, it was still there. Like there was
Hmm.
no mold, it never disintegrated. Like it's not even food. Like the burger, the bun, like an ice cream sandwich, you get an ice cream sandwich, like it doesn't melt.
Doesn't melt, even with, you're right, it
Right.
doesn't.
So it's not even food. Like they're just products. We're eating
Products.
products.
That's it. We're becoming plasticized people.
Right. We should live
Um,
forever, right? We're gonna look at
right,
plastic people.
exactly.
We
Like,
look like a Barbie doll.
right. And then of course the alcohol, there's been a lot of talk about that, limiting your alcohol or avoiding alcohol. There's a big now push for not like, sobriety, like so going, like not drinking.
Mhm.
And how can you avoid that? I know it's hard in social settings for a lot of people, but when it comes to your health, then you might not think it being hard, especially when you avoid it for a period of time. You realize how good you feel without the alcohol, how well you sleep, how much more brain activity and focus you have, clarity. And so what can be done? mocktails.
Yeah.
You want that flavor, nice herbal tea, an herbal
And you put
tea,
a little sparkling water or
sparkling water
something
in there. You can
with
add,
a little lemon and lime. Like
we
nobody will
talked
know that
about
you're
that,
doing a
right?
cocktail.
Yeah.
And and it's refreshing and you're actually sustaining your body rather than tearing it apart.
That's it. Add some nutrition to it. Like add like again, make it nutrient dense. Give yourself something, vitamin C, like all these, I know, but don't know if many of you know, but I do teas and so does Dabney. And so we create these nice yummy teas and it's just like you don't really miss it in the end. You don't miss
No,
the alcohol, right? I had a lady talk to me the other day. I mean, again, it's syrup, but she was like, to me, it's a little bit better than having the alcohol. And I said, okay. She's like, I just put a splash. I don't use a lot. And I said, well, you could just use fruit too. You could add
Mhm.
like, and it would be just as good. So to me, that even green tea you could have cold, right? Add some lemon
Mhm.
to it. Then it would taste like, or just a tea with some lemon. It ends up tasting like a Long Island without the alcohol. Um,
Yeah.
so, there's ways. There's ways to avoid the alcohol without feeling like you're missing out. And trust me, I've been there, done that as kind of a test to myself to see. And honestly, it is a game changer when you stop having alcohol and you can get through it. You really can. It's okay. But if you
Yeah.
really want something, have something like a glass of um, red wine, maybe
Red wine certainly has a lot of phytonutrients
polyphenols
and
and a lot of
reverse,
antioxidants and
yeah,
things like that,
antioxidants. Mhm.
resveratrol.
Yeah,
So
that's it.
I would probably go with something like that, maybe a gin because it's more medicinal, let's say, because it has like a lot of herbs and
Mhm.
things in it.
Yeah.
Um, Maybe a tequila because it comes from a plant, but those are probably the health I would go with, because now even vodkas are made from corn and different things.
Potatoes, yeah. Very starchy
So
stuff. Yep.
yeah, so I would go with that. And yeah, and then I guess what else is there? One more thing. Oh, you talked about the omega-6 fatty acids, and I think, we've talked about a lot of the foods that fight inflammation. And I guess our tips, we've probably summed it up, right? Basically, a lot of whole grains, healthy fats, limit the processed foods,
Yeah, and
hydration.
right. And don't forget your green leafy
Oh,
veggies
green leafy veggies. Yep.
because those are
Tomatoes.
blood purifiers. And I did learn this like parsley and cilantro. Just add that to your salads on a day-to-day basis because they are blood purifiers. And we certainly have a lot of toxins environmentally, food-wise. Like we just have a lot of toxins that come to us every single day. And our skin, like we touch something, like our skin absorbs whatever it is we're touching. So if your blood gets stagnant and doesn't move very well, gets a lot of toxins in it, like our blood is our body. Like it's every single tissue and cell in our body. So having those types of foods helps our body and our blood to be cleansed, removes the toxins that then are excreted. And it can just help you have more energy, more vitality, and less chronic issues going forward. So even though people don't necessarily like salads, there are other ways to get your salads. If you like a green smoothie, I don't necessarily think smoothies are great for the morning, especially a cold one, because it kind of puts out that digestive fire. You want to heat up your digestive system when you're throughout the day. It just helps you to be able to get through and um, digest your food on a more efficient basis. But it could be something that you have in the evening, just as a dessert. You can have a green smoothie with some berries and different things. So that's
I love
mine.
it. And one of our favorite things to do here when we're up at the lake is we get fresh eggs from our local farmer. I know
Mm,
Dabney has her own eggs,
I
so
got mine in
she can
eggs. My
appreciate.
girls.
And we have our garden full of herbs, and we call them green eggs because we take all different types of herbs from our garden and we just chop them up and put them. It's more herbs. I've talked about this before, and put them into our egg, and it's delicious. And so it's a great
Mhm.
way for us to start the morning, a little bit of protein. We add a little bit of like coconut like oil or whatever into our ghee into our pot pan, and add some tomatoes if we want, like some sprouts after, and it's delicious. So just little things, little tweaks that you can do and add the nuts and seeds into your salads. and spice it up. Use like turmeric, ginger, cinnamon. These kinds of things will help fight inflammation as well. So, if something's not sweet enough, add a touch of cinnamon to it. We've talked about that before. I know
And
in
it's,
podcast.
yeah, and it's good for lowering the blood sugar.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. So I think we've like talked about a lot in this almost hour.
Mhm. Has it been an hour? Almost. Yeah.
45 minutes or so.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we could talk forever and ever. If you have more questions or anything that you'd like more information on, you can always reach out to Dabney or I. Our information will be in the show notes. You can always find us on Instagram at Dabney.
I just changed it. Yeah, I just decided to, after going to this conference, to integrate both of my passions, which is dental hygiene and my herbalism. So I'm now the herbal hygienist. So you can find me on my social accounts. And then the email will be in the show notes as well. And Sabrina, how can they find you?
And I'm at Bruja Blends, but Bruja_blends on Instagram, brujablends.com, but it's going to be on the show notes, formerly Nourish Well. Yeah, so we're there and you can reach out to either one of us. We do consults, we provide information for nutrition. So don't hesitate to reach out. And if there's anything else you want to hear or you'd like us to talk about, please feel free to reach out.
Yeah, and I would encourage you, if you decide to make some big changes, find your tribe, and we're happy to be a part of that tribe. So just reach out and let us know how we can help you be your best you. So with
I
that,
just had an idea. Before we go, I had an idea.
yeah,
Maybe we should start a little tribe, do like a once a month group for people that jump on, and whoever jumps on, jumps on. If nobody jumps on, then we jump off.
oh,
But maybe we could put up a link and people could just do it like kind of little chat, like support.
yeah, I
Something.
like it.
We'll talk about it.
Okay,
That just
brainstorm,
sparked an idea.
brainstorm.
But with
Okay,
that, until next time, stay healthy.
yeah, stay healthy and be happy.